Welcome everybody to episode 164 of the You Can't Comp This NBA Trading Card Podcast. We're your host Adam, Amy and Russell Gibson. A little bit earlier than normal this week. It's crazy in Melbourne.
A little bit earlier,
moment.
but
yeah.
for very good reason. I think your Swannies are in the grand final. And
Yes. We have a public holiday here in Melbourne for it. To celebrate
we did have
football.
some football chat on the Facebook page, which kind of made me a little bit sad, but that's okay.
I did a shout out trying to get grand final tickets. Sadly, none of our basketball enthusiasts
could
hook me up. So I am going to drown my sorrows at a barbecue and hopefully celebrate a big win for my team. So
that's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, look, when it's the grand final, I'll allow some football chat on the thing, but otherwise it's
awesome.
banned.
It's banned.
Yeah.
Banned. That's fair. That is fair. At least I'm not trying to comp football cards.
Oh, jeez. That'll be deleted. You've been put on post-approval, ad.
But speaking of comping cards, we're really going to dig deep. We're back into cards this week. We've had some fun weeks. It was nice to speak to Lane last week.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Interesting, informative guy. He's got a lot going on in the hobby, and actually, I'm kind of proud to fly the Australian flag when I speak to someone like Lane. Building 130 point and all the processes he's got done for the hobby, submitting cards for people to PSA. It's, it really is an asset. And I think, it's also the way that media is sometimes portrayed in terms of social media. There's so many scams in the hobby to have that service available to Australians for that.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's just really reassuring and dare I even say heartwarming, So, but yeah, I'm proud of Lane in terms of his 130 point work. I think that's just kind of cool to know someone like that.
For sure. I just think Australia in general it contributes in such a meaningful way to this hobby.
But meaningful.
Yeah, so we've got people like Lane with 130 point, which is, it's a globally recognized platform, which is awesome. Yeah. Obviously, we've got friends like, I don't know, Tyson Beck.
Yeah, Tyson's the next obvious one, isn't it?
Yeah, and then there's us.
Wow.
Are we on the podium, or are we?
I think we're a few steps back, but that's that's okay.
We're working on it.
Anyway, so this episode is all just comms. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through every single Eastern Conference team.
Yeah.
And then next week we're going to do the West. And so I think what we should probably do to start the show off is shout out to Daniel Torini 1253, and he is a listener on YouTube. And he put up this question: Hey legends, could you do a last minute buys before the season starts segment, e.g. who is cheap or who is dropped at the moment that has potential to grow throughout the season? And what my initial plan was, and I put up a bit of a teaser on socials maybe last week, I think it was, but then we had Lane sort of come on at the last minute, and I was just going to do 10 cards, but then it got me thinking, we've been very, very comp light the last few weeks, so why don't we just get out and do the whole lot? So we're going to do the whole league.
No more comp light. We're going to do everything. We're jamming it all in.
We're back.
Well, we might have to separate it into conferences.
Yeah. Well,
half and half.
If we could do every team in 2 minutes, we could do the whole league in 1
We could do a special 4-hour show. No. We'd do that live.
No one's going to listen to that. Not even my mum would, She would turn it off after about 15 minutes.
We should have requested we do that at the AFL Grand Final parade. We could just talk basketball cards.
That would suit me.
I'm sure that would go down like a lead balloon.
I actually thought about doing that, like a live segment when the AFL's on, the grand final. So then people who don't want to watch the grand final have got something else to do.
You realise you'll be doing that solo. I will be watching the
grand final.
I
definitely know you won't be there, but
I'll see the notification. I'll pop into the chat. I'll say something.
It would entertain me anyway.
I'll be giving score updates for the football.
All right, let's do this, Ad. Let's get going.
Let's kick it off with
Boston Celtics. They should go first. They're the reigning champs. They deserve
both.
Maybe a little bit more love than Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown got from Steve Kerr and the Team USA playing rotations.
They got a gold medal out of it.
They did.
Well, yes.
Jaylen Brown did.
Jaylen Brown did, and Tatum did. You can just enjoy it. But yeah, the Celtics, Tatum.
Yeah, so look, we're not going to touch on every player from every team. That would just be just too difficult to do. So,
Mm.
for example, for the Celtics, we've pointed out Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. That's the one we're going to talk about today. But feel free to chip in
Uh,
anywhere that you want. Yeah,
cool. You can lead us off
yeah.
with
All right.
Tatum.
So Jason Tatum, if you look at his 12-month growth, he's actually down 32%, and that to me is just like, frankly, bananas. If you look at his 1 month growth, he's actually down 28%, which is super interesting when you think about it because he's just come off NBA Finals win, was
Mm.
definitely an important player, and it didn't get the MVP, but that's okay. He was actually trading very recently at 852. He's currently trading at 610.
Is that
So I
an
think,
off-season thing?
yeah, it definitely could be an off-season thing, but I think this is also, and we've touched on this a little bit, of when people are holding onto cards to sell them at particular, pinch points in terms of their career. And I think that's what we're seeing here when a lot more of these cards
Mm.
have become available. But I think the real question for me is, where is this gentleman going in the next 12 months to, say, 5 years?
Mm.
And when you look at the Celtics roster and also moving forward, potentially with Bezos buying the team and also the salary cap going up, we've spoken about the large salaries that the Boston Celtics, players are being paid. And in my head, I'm like, how's this all going to work out? But actually, with the growing cap, maybe it's all going to work out and this team is going to stay together, this sort of, nice young nucleus.
Yeah.
Where I'm going with this is I actually wonder if the Celtics are going to win multiple championships over the next few years. And
I'd like to hope not.
actually, is this a really good buy at the moment? It's $600. Population on it is higher. I'll definitely appreciate that. It's 890 on the silver PSA 10. I actually think there's some room for this to grow at 610.
You
So
think?
yeah, I think so. I don't think this is terrible. And I think probably, yeah, where I'm going with this is it's dependent on him winning multiple championships though, but I definitely see that potential there. So,
Yeah.
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 Now,
Yeah, I think there's
Jalen,
definitely. Yeah, I think Tatum's definitely worth a look see at the moment.
yeah, yeah. Jaylen Brown, on the other hand, is in a different price point altogether. So he's trading at the moment at 265. His 1 month growth is down basically 10%. Let's just call it that. His 1 year growth though is really up and down, but he's actually up like 0.5%. So population on this is much, much lower than the Tatum at 287. If I
Mm.
did have to choose between the two of these, just simply for the price point, I would go with the Jaylen Brown
And
because,
the population.
yeah, and the pop. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think there's a world where Jaylen Brown does usurp um, Tatum at the top?
I think a lot has to change in that space. And
Aside from Steve Kerr like trying to make it look that way.
I think Kerr actually has done the Boston Celtics a massive favor. Like they've already been talking about it on social media that they're going to use it as motivation to come into the new year and just
Yeah.
dominate people. And I think the championship from the hangover is a real thing. So maybe what we're going to see from the Boston Celtics, there's no championship hangover for this team. They're ready to go right now. So
Yeah.
that to me is going to be really interesting. So to answer your question specifically, the only way I see Jaylen Brown being more expensive than Tatum if Tatum bottoms out. And there's no real reason for Tatum to bottom out because
Mm.
I still think all the talent and the pedigree is going to be there for Tatum. And look, if you're asking my honest opinion, the way that they give out the MVP award for the finals, there's not a lot of logic behind it. And I actually disagree that Jaylen Brown I was going to say given, but given's not the right word, or gifted. And again, that's not the right word. He earned the award,
Yeah.
but I still don't think that was the right decision. Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else on the Celtics you want to talk about before we push on?
I've got one quick one
Hit me.
Derek White still trading at $80.
I'll let you manage this. I've got nothing to talk about on this.
It's a lower pop. I mean, he's an Olympic gold medalist now.
Yeah.
Looking at the 1 year growth, he's steadily up. Started the year 12 months ago at $55.
Yeah.
Now trading at $80.
Yeah. So my immediate comp to that would be Drew Holiday. I think
Love it. Yeah.
Derek White is like a poor man's Drew Holiday. And I think if you want to spend that low end money on a player who's really good,
Yeah.
and I'll put those two in the same category,
Yeah,
I'd
for
probably
sure.
rather put my money into Drew Holiday. So that's probably where I'm sitting with
Oh,
that.
Derek White's the younger player, though.
Yeah.
Got
I
more
think
potential
Drew's
for growth.
yeah, Drew's got 2 championships on 2 different teams.
Derek
You
White
know,
might get another gold medal. Might win
maybe.
some more championships. All right, so multiple championships on one team or single championships on multiple teams. What's more
So, for
impressive?
example, for me, I prefer Kawhi Leonard's career in a lot of ways because he won championships on
Hmm,
different teams. And so, for
interesting.
example, he gets traded to Toronto and they virtually instantly win a championship. And I think
Mm.
there's something to be said about that. And so, for
So the
me,
LeBron legacy is better than the Kobe legacy?
that's a completely like separate argument altogether, man.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And look, that's a different episode.
Yeah, absolutely. That's almost a question to itself, really, isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
true. It's true. But yeah, like I couldn't imagine anything outside the bubble. I mean, all jokes aside with Derek White, I couldn't imagine anything outside the bubble of Tatum and Brown, really. There's not
Yeah.
really much in the way of prospecting.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a market for Porzingis or it's PC only at this stage?
I think Porzingis is fine, but I think the issue with him is that the prices on him haven't moved a lot. And
Yeah.
so I bought Porzingis a couple of years back, identifying him as someone who I thought was less, his value is less than what his talent is. But even moving to a Boston team, his value didn't
Mm,
come up very much. And then he
mm.
was injured through the finals anyway. So that was really the most Porzingis thing that could happen. Gets traded to a really good team, contributes in a meaningful way, but then is injured for, half of the finals. Like that's literally the summary of his career, isn't it,
Yeah.
really? So
Yeah, pretty much.
look, I think you can buy him if you want, but I don't think there's a lot of upside there. And also the big
Yeah.
man sort of thing. So
Yep, most definitely.
alrighty.
Who's next on the
Brooklyn
list?
Nets. I've got a note next to this one that says low end delight. So the three players identified is Cam Thomas, Cameron Johnson, and Killian Hayes. So I think Cam Thomas is probably the most interesting one to talk about because he had that huge spike last year. And his prices at the moment, actually, I'm really surprised about. So silver PSA 10 is currently trading at $170. And for me, that's actually a sell or a hold. I'm really sort of maybe I'm just being too conservative on this one, but I'm not particularly that interested in spending that much money on that. In saying all of that, if he has a crazy good year this year, we've already seen him having a spike. Actually, I think he could go up. He could have another spike. And there's no reason in my head.
Wow.
Some people just have that, let's just say the Fruja factor.
Mm,
I think he's the type of guy that, can go up and down like a yo-yo. And maybe
yeah.
that's his hobby destiny, that he's going to be like a stock that's extremely volatile. Population on this is
Probably.
45. Look, I don't have the stomach for this type of asset collecting, but I can actually see that, being a piece.
I see the rationale
Um,
behind it for sure.
yeah. The next two I'm actually more interested to talk about. So Cam Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
silver PSA 10 is 594. So it's high. The population on that is very high. But the price point on this, it last traded at $9.85. This actually might be one of my strongest buys out of everything that we talk about today. And if
Really?
I'm recollecting properly, we did a segment on Cam Johnson versus Mikal Bridges, and I'm pretty sure I said Cam Johnson was the better buy at the price point. So that was an absolute stinker from me, but I'm, I'm going to double down at $10. If I picked up 3 or 4 of these at $10 a piece, I would be very happy about that.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of opportunity. If you look at the Brooklyn roster, there's a lot of opportunity here for players to
Prospecting.
emerge.
Yep.
Yeah. So, which takes us to our last one. This is really for Al Kane's. Killian Hayes got not re-signed. He got signed by the Brooklyn Nets. I can't find any data on PSA 10s on this, but his raws are trading for $1.49. Look, I kind of think this is fun,
Killian Hayes is not fun if you paid more than $1.49 for him, though. Sorry,
Yeah,
Al.
look, I think if you land one of these for sub $10 Aussie,
Yeah.
you send off a few to PSA. He has a really good year because, again, there's going to be a lot of opportunity on this roster. So,
Mm.
look, I think the Brooklyn Nets are a really sort of fun, prospecting team. And there's actually like a lot of meat on the bones there. So, potentially
some dollar box goodness.
Yeah,
That
that's
makes sense.
right.
Go
Yeah.
digging through. We go to a local card shop, see a
Yeah.
couple of Killians. Why not?
Low end delight. I think that little
That's it.
catchphrase sticks. Yeah.
It could be one of those like you sort of take a $20 challenge almost.
Yeah.
And you go into a bargain box and you dig through, try and get
How
the
many
best.
can you get for $20? Yeah.
Like, what's going to be the best value, and then wait for a couple of months and see what that $20 turned into, kind of thing.
Yeah.
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 Awesome.
Should we go to our first ad break ad?
We should. We
Yeah.
should.
Let's start with the hobby hangout this week. I think I'm feeling in a hobby hangout type mood. So thank you to the gentlemen at the hobby hangout for your support. You've given us so much support in terms of opportunity to be at your events and live podcasts there and believe in our product. So we're grateful for that. You also give us sponsorship too. And that's what we're going to talk about now. So the 17th of November, we will be at the hobby hangout and hope to see everyone there. Tickets are currently on sale for $35. It doesn't say how many tickets are left at the second release, but then the final release will go on sale for $39. It is 11:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's at, why can't I see where it's at? The Melbourne Pavilion in Kensington. And did I say the date, Ad? The 17th of November.
17th of November, the
Yeah.
Melbourne Pavilion. It's gonna be great. We're gonna be there. Of course, it's
Yeah.
gonna be great.
Also, shout out to Sydney. Sydney have got a show the 1st of December. That is at it's funny I can remember this, the Roundhouse. Again, tickets are at thehobbyhangout.com.au. Get along to this, guys. It's always a really good day. There's trading zones, there is live workshops, there's podcasts, there's breaks, and just a really good way to meet people that you've probably spoken to online and put a face to the name, basically. I think that's the thing that I enjoy about the hobby hangout. And
It's true.
these
It's
events
gonna be
like
a
this,
heap
so-
of fun. Heap of fun.
Alrighty, we are back. Welcome everyone back. So glad that you could join us back. We're going to get straight back into it with the New York Knicks. Now, this one is kind of juicy for me, actually. There's sort of
The New
one
York
that I'm
Knickerbockers.
very interested to talk about. And then after that, there's some sort of like really good sort of mid-tier guys to sort of consider. So I think Jalen Brunson is the one that is the obvious one here. And I think where I was at with him in the last 12 months was I felt like there was potential there, but I just really wasn't too sure how much further he could go. So he last traded at $300.
Okay.
Now, where I currently sit with Jalen Brunson is I actually think he's going to go into the next tier. So he's trading at more than what Jaylen Brown is, but less than what Tatum is. So he's sort of in between those two.
Yeah.
I consider this a buy. And the
Okay.
reason I do is because of the market that he's in. You know, New York is definitely a basketball town.
Yeah.
I would also say, too, that the investment that the Knicks made in the offseason was significant. I think getting Mikal Bridges into that system, in the Thibs system that is like, you know, all defense and hustle. And also you literally need an Iron Man, and Bridges has never missed a game.
Yeah.
And so...
Well,
I mean,
the
sort of-
injuries might have been what cost them. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely they had injury problems last year, but they've really added to their depth. They're a little bit weak at the center position, and Zach Lowe did a really good podcast about that this week. So if you want to hear about the Knicks center position,
Yeah.
listen to that podcast. But at the same time, getting back to Jalen Brunson, I think he's going to go into that next sort of tier. And will his hobby love, you know, go into that next tier too? You know, I think it's fair to say yes, he will.
Interesting.
Population on this is moderate. It's 541. So you could sort of argue that's a bit of a detractor, but at the same time,
Given the population counts of players from this draft class, 541's not terrible.
it's not horrible. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So look, yeah, I like this. And I think this is one that I'm probably going to be looking at the most this year.
You want to check in a couple of times throughout the season. Look,
I'm just really curious to sort of see where this ends up. You know, am I putting personally my money into it? I'm not. I'm looking at collecting different things, but you know, I like the play here. I think that's where I'm sort of going with that.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You're really giving this sort of the rocket ship analogy where this has taken off. Like 12 months ago, this card was selling for $100.
Yeah.
Right? It's now tripled in value, so 200% growth.
Yeah.
Are we going to see another 200% growth? Is this going to move up into that
Maybe
stratosphere
not.
with Tatum?
Maybe not 200%, but I suppose where I'm going with this is why can't this card keep going up?
Yeah. With the
You know,
Knicks, if the Knicks are succeeding and this guy's at the front of it,
yeah.
I would tend to say he's about to get the alpha status.
And I missed saying this before, but he's also the people's choice. I think the contract that he signed in the offseason where he left $100 million on the table so that they could get
So, yeah.
Bridges and keep OG, like people, that goes into people's psyche. And I think like that is important for the narrative, piece too. Plus he saved New York basketball. I think that's the other thing, like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think what this guy's doing is actually, really special and important. So
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to the next guy's Bridges. We have already spoken about him, but let's keep going. $77 he's currently trading at for a silver PSA 10. The population on this is high. It's 800.
Yeah.
So look, where I'm at with this is I think at that price, that's a fine price. I think, you use the phrase sometimes future pricing. I think that's current pricing.
Yeah.
So can this card go up? Yes, it can go up, but it's solely dependent on the Knicks having a deep playoff run, maybe even them getting to the finals. So what's the issue with that, or what's the things that's going to hold them back? The East is going to be brutal this year. I think Boston's going to
Yeah,
be back.
for sure.
I really like the Bucks at the moment. I think there's no reason to, count them out. And then there's other teams like the Magic, and then there's like Philadelphia that's going to be there. So I think, the East is going to be brutal this year. It's going to be sick basketball. Like that's going to
I
be
think
great.
there's going to be a lot of really cool basketball
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
East.
So that's where I'm sort of, yeah, I think this is a good buy, but at the
Okay.
same time too, it's also very much dependent on, what else sort of, plays out.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel like those not top end players, so the ones that aren't the number one, definitely it's narrative driven.
Yeah.
Like a team success,
Yeah.
role players, it can be very I suppose success driven
Yeah.
is the word, yeah.
Then the last one I've got for the Knicks is OG Anunoby, and I think the reason I put this one is because I've actually had my own sort of personal interest in this gentleman, and he's the type of guy that, same as Porzingis, the price that you pay for him, I think, is cheaper than what his total talent base is.
Yeah.
And so when I look at this, I'm like, actually, this is a really good buy. So he's currently trading at $43. I like this for the price point, but it also gets to a point too where, how many teams are we through now? We're through 3 teams. We've spoken about 10 different players. How many cards can you buy? At what point do you start sort of, filtering and, sifting out some of these players? And maybe this is the truth of it. OG is one of these guys that, look, he's a really good player. He's got a lot of talent, but you have to sort of sift some of these guys out and to sort of say, look, I'm not going to, dive into this.
And buy all of them.
I mean, you can't buy everything, right?
You can't.
Yeah. So, what's better to buy? Are you going to buy Bridges or are you going to buy OG? And maybe, yeah. Anyway, look, if you do want to buy this, I don't mind it. I think the price is fine. The population is 259, so there's a lot of room to grow there.
True.
Yeah.
True. Heaps of growth potential.
Yeah.
And I think there's opportunities for people to try different things.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because you're right, you can't buy anything, so I don't know.
Moving on, 76ers. I'm really interested to talk about this one, and I've just narrowed it down to 2 players on this team. I think this is, in my head, the 2 that are hobby relevant is Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid.
Agreed.
Maxey, for me, is in the same conversation as Jalen Brunson.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you talk about somebody who, has the potential to go up higher. And I think last year, actually, I feel like the narrative for me is exactly the same as Brunson. I was watching these prices go up, and I'm like, how much more is this going to go up? And then after seeing him at the end of the year and even in the playoffs, I'm almost like now there's a lot of talk around Embiid about him being, he's been the league MVP. So what I'm about to sort of say is almost like blasphemy in some ways, but I actually almost see him as potentially being the best player in Philadelphia because I think Embiid has got so much talent and so much ability to impact the basketball game. Like, this is not a diss about Embiid, but there's also the piece around his injury status, his fitness, his maintenance on the basketball court, and I think that's where Maxey is the complete opposite. Like, his conditioning is like a boxer that can go for 12 rounds, or
Yeah,
an
yeah.
extreme triathlete. Like, and you never really think of this guy as being injured. So I think that's where I see his value to that team is that,
Yep.
maybe actually more sets and more plays are going to be run through Maxi because he's going to be the consistent piece. And then Embiid sort of almost fits around Maxi. And that's kind of cool too, because then you've got this amazing talent, fitting around. And I feel like my basketball fantasy was actually when Kobe Bryant was the second option to Shaq. Because you think about
Yes.
Kobe Bryant catching the ball in the wing with no one on him because, like, people have rotated off going down to Shaq, and then Kobe's just scoring in space. And if you
It's that
sort of
1-2 punch, though, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
if you role reverse that around, whereas Maxi's drawing defenders and kicking out to Embiid, and Embiid's just got all this space to work in, like that's a really sick sort of like
So,
1-2
what
plan.
you're saying is Embiid and Maxi are the new Shaq and Kobe.
Definitely not. I'm just trying to paint like a bit of a basketball analogy, but yeah. So look,
Could
he's
be.
trading at $323. The population on that's 515. Look, if this is a $500 card, I'm not going to be shocked. Honestly,
I
it's
can see
already
this taking a step up.
yeah, it's already traded at 450 at one point, so it's not outrageous to say that it's going to get
Mm.
back to that and eclipse it. So I yeah, I really like this. I'm really intrigued by it. I think Maxi has got a lot of, room to grow still in terms of his career potential. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really high on this kid actually. I love watching him play basketball. And then let's talk about Embiid. This is a really like interesting one for me because population on his silver PSA 9 is 62. There's no sales data on the silver PSA 10 on card ladder. So this is a little bit
Wow.
limited conversation. So it's not a like for like comparison, but
Mm.
his 9 is trading at 168. So let's just say that his 10 is trading at double that, maybe even more. Let's just round it up to
I was gonna
$400.
see if I can see the pop report on it. There's
Yeah.
okay, so no, there's 88 tens, and they're current.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, I've been really fascinated by Nikola Jokic in the last 6 months. And I think if you've been listening, to my content and, watching stuff on Instagram, there's been a lot of Jokic stuff going up. But almost I can sort of see myself going down this same sort of rabbit hole with
Mm.
Embiid of like having this ultra talent. They've won really important national awards. And if he's adding championships to that pedigree too, I think are these cards actually really good buys now to hold for the next 10 years? I'm not talking about a quick flip here. I don't think that
No.
that's the narrative on someone like Embiid. But
Mm.
again, for that price and the talent point, I think there's a bit of a mismatch here, and I'm quite intrigued by it. The detractors are obviously the injury history, and also he's a big guy. People aren't generally trading for that sort of
Big on
stuff. But
bigs
yeah, but it's
market. Yeah.
yeah, definitely worth watching. All right, do you reckon we can do one more and go to our next break, Ed?
Yeah. Let's do it.
All
Smash
right,
through it.
Toronto Raptors. Now, the one-line slogan I put on this one is a lot of prospects to choose from here. So this is a prospector's delight. If you just want to prospect one team, go to the Toronto Raptors. Now, I'm going to slag Scotty Barnes here. So Scotty Barnes' ex went onto Twitter this week and basically did this whole thing about him dating her through high school, dating her through university. She moves to Toronto, to another country. She finishes her master's. Then he mysteriously just breaks up with her without any explanation. And then a month later, he's impregnated a much older. I don't think we need to say the appearance of the woman, but
No.
she mentioned that quite a few times, in there. But he impregnated a much older cougar. I think that's probably like the phrase to use, isn't it? So she's a little bit salty at the moment. And I actually think that Scotty Barnes should be slammed for this in his hobby value. So I'm putting Scotty Barnes as a very strong sell just for his like his act on this here. But all
I don't
jokes
think the
aside,
market agrees with you.
all jokes aside, Scotty Barnes PSA 10 population 300, currently trading at $150.
Mm.
I think the comp for this for me is Kawhi Leonard. His skill set is so
Ooh.
broad on both ends of the court. I had the privilege of seeing Scotty Barnes play in person, and it was a sick
Yeah.
experience. I almost would put it in the same sentence as seeing LeBron play. Like his physical presence on the court.
Wow.
He's a big boy, man. Like
Yeah.
yeah, and the amount of court that he covers is insane. So
Okay.
look, I all jokes aside, apart from his dog act that he did, I really love Scotty Barnes, but I'm just not that high in terms of his like hobby love. I don't think he has that.
Does he not have the hobby love because he's stuck in Toronto, or
I think part of it is like his game. I think his game is very nuanced. It's very,
okay?
three-dimensional. He can play both ends of the court, and people, that's not that exciting. Anthony Edwards is exciting. LaMelo Ball is exciting.
Yeah,
Scotty Barnes
is
probably,
Scotty Barnes. Yeah, is
you
efficient.
could argue is maybe even better than Edwards on both ends of the court. But
I don't think Edwards would agree.
of course, Edwards wouldn't. Edwards' ego is like, bigger than that story that his ex just dumped. That was probably my favorite story of the week. I'm not going to lie to you.
Fair.
Alrighty, so we got Scotty Barnes covered. Scotty Barnes, you're a sell. Quickly. Now, Quickly is interesting for me because the Raptors invested a lot of money into this kid, like a lot of money. So he's currently trading at Raw for $4.50. I think the play here is you buy 10 of them and you send them off to PSA, hoping that a few come back as 10. He'll pop and then you flip them out. I think that's the play there. But obviously there's some risk that comes along with that.
Yeah.
Now, his PSA 10s, the reason I say that is because his PSA 10s sold for 70, 65, 67, and 80. So in terms of just doing the pure mathematics, the definitely the play is there.
Yeah.
The last one I think we should probably talk about too in terms of prospecting, but also someone who's a bit more established is RJ Barrett.
Oh, it's an interesting one.
The problem with this, though, is it's not the price point, it's the population. So the population on this is 1,380, trading for $57. I probably think the better thing to do here is buy a numbered card.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is part of that. Isn't he the Ja Morant year?
Yeah, so this is Ja Morant, but also the New York
tidal
market.
wave of the New York.
Yeah,
everybody graded this. He was
in a massive market, and there was a lot of hype around this kid.
Yeah,
and
correct.
I don't think the reason he was traded so much was his lack of talent. I think it was his lack of mesh with Tibbs. And so
that's true.
What you could see in Toronto is him actually,
Stepping
reaching his full potential. Yeah.
Yeah.
But really here, I think you do need to move away from the silvers. The population on this, that's not collectible. That's like
Kobe
Pokemon
White
card.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Final thoughts on the Knicks, and we'll go to our next ad.
On the Raptors, you mean?
Sorry.
I know we just looked at two Knicks cards.
I had the RJ Barrett and his rookie cards in a Knicks uniform. Thank you for correcting me.
Same as Quigley. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Both they were traded, obviously, part of that part of last season's big moves.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think there's a lot of room to move, and it's teams like the Raptors where there's a lot of fun to be had. But beware, don't expect to become like the next
Gary V
selling Raptors cards. It's probably not the biggest of markets.
Or the next Ken Golden. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
I still think there's a play there on that quickly, like buying Ross
sure.
and sending them off. There's not that, like usually the equation is it's quite like small margins, whereas to me that's almost like a 10x. Like that's quite interesting.
Yeah, true.
Alrighty. FastBreakTradingCards.com. Thank you so much to Alvaro and John for supporting us. We really appreciate your sponsorship. Check out the lads at FastBreakTradingCards.com. Now, if you go onto their website, use the promo code YCCC10. I think I might have said too many C's.
It's not YCCC, it's YCCT10. Also, which stands for you can't comp this.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about chips and CCs actually.
And T.
Anyway, if you use that promo code, you will get 10% off the Fanatics memorabilia. Last week we spoke about the Bob Cousy, Mitchell and Ness, which I still think is my favorite jersey that they've got for sale on there. It also comes with the Hall of Fame 71 inscription. That's $8.95 AUD with a 10% off code. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of salesman pitch here at the moment. If you are looking to get Fanatics memorabilia,
Mm.
at the moment, Fanatics is currently not selling to Australia due to the lawsuit. So if you are looking for Fanatics memorabilia in Australia, I think the boys at Fast Break Trading Cards are a really good option because they've already got all the stock here and they're still legally allowed to sell it. So
Yeah,
they might actually have the market cornered at the moment in terms of the volume of Fanatics memorabilia.
for sure.
They also have sealed product. They have packets. They've got boxes. Check out the lads. They will always take very good care of you. Alrighty, Adam, how are you feeling? How is your break?
Very refreshing. Very refreshing.
What
I'm
are you drinking today? Actually, I didn't ask
hydrated.
you
It's
that.
water.
Just water?
Yeah, in lead up to the grand final, it's
Yeah,
definitely water.
pre-hydrate.
That pre-hydrating
So
because they'll-
basically, for the next 30 hours or so, you're just going to be hydrating, pre-hydrating.
it is. It's very much preparation for a very
Yeah.
very big day full of celebration, hopefully, or commiseration. One
Yeah.
or the other. There'll be whatever it is. It'll be big.
Chicago Bulls. Josh Giddey is the obvious headliner here after being exiled from Oklahoma City.
Exiled.
You might argue he was also made the scapegoat for their playoff performances, but at the same time,
We'll see next
think
season, won't we?
it's a fantastic opportunity for him, and I really think he's landed on his feet. He's landed in a massive market on a team that desperately needs size, rebounding, playmaking, defense, and I think he's going to fit in absolutely seamlessly. I'm very interested to see where they put him positionally because I actually imagine him playing maybe at the 3.
Okay.
Then they can play Levine and Kobe White at the same time, which is kind of, I'm very curious on that.
Yeah, how they utilize him will be very interesting.
Yeah. Alrighty, so if you look at his silver PSA 10s, in the last 12 months, he's actually down 58%. However, if we zoom in a little bit closer to, say, 3 months, he's actually up 13%. So I think what that means to me is that the sentiment is kind of saying he's been traded to a better position, and now we're already starting to see that uptick. So can he recover to his sale of
former greatness?
250? Absolutely, I think he can.
Yeah.
I think so. That means to me this is just a buy. His population on this is relatively low. It's at 148.
Yeah.
I like this for a lot of different reasons, including the reason of just him getting a fresh start. I think the way that it ended in Oklahoma probably wasn't fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think if we're being transparent about that conversation, I think that issue that he went through in terms of age of consent and that sort of whole social media.
Well, the narrative that okay.
Yeah. And the allegations, let's just keep it, 100. There was nothing actually, charged or formally done, but
Yep.
I think
there
he
was an
needed
investigation. It was cleared.
yeah, look, I think a fresh start is going to be, fantastic for him. So I'm very high on this.
Yeah.
The next one that I'm personally interested in is Pat Williams because he came into the league insanely young and is still a very young man despite being in the league now for 4 years.
Yeah.
His silvers are just trading at $1. I sometimes I see these things and I'm like, do people not watch basketball? Do people just get so distracted by new product and, new prospects that are coming out?
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about this for the next 12 months because probably where I'm sitting at the moment is this draft class we're going to be entering in, very shortly is going to be not good. In fact, you might say it's actually quite terrible. And I'm going to be looking at the last couple of years to go back and actually pick up players who have gone out of the excitement phase and actually now developing into good players. So Pat Williams, I'm putting squarely into that. Look, I really love his game. I think that he's obviously maybe got some confidence issues that he could do more on the basketball court.
Yeah.
But he absolutely has the physical tools and also the skill tools to do it. It's just whether he can, put it all together consistently.
In one. Yeah.
I've said this before. You watch him when he puts his head down and decides he's going to the basket. No one can stop him. Like there's a little bit of LeBron James rolling to the basket, and he's like, like a freight train. That
It's that freight train feel.
He's a big boy,
Yeah.
And I think with the flexibility of his skill set and also the way the league is going in terms of that sort of positionless basketball, I like it.
So that bit of yeah.
So, look, the question is how much money can you make off Pat Williams?
Yeah.
That's really the question, isn't it? And my answer is, well, actually, I'm not really too sure, but I like him as a prospect.
Yeah.
The other one I think is just a really quick notation is Ayo Dosunmu. I did like him, but I'm beginning to think now he's going to be squeezed out by Giddy. So I couldn't find very much on pricing, but I did find a really nice
Yeah.
silver cracked ice and a red cracked ice on him in terms of the color match. I think that's kind of good.
Mm.
Cleveland Cavaliers, I've labeled them as unexciting. So I think this might be the fastest run through we're going to do here, mate. So we've got the three names I highlighted, though, was Evan Mobley, Donovan Mitchell, and Darius Garland. All very good prospects in their own space, but at the same time, there's not a lot happening here. So Evan Mobley, red cracked ice for 61 Canadian, and orange ice for 58 Canadian. He's not on card ladder, so these are all 130 point comps. Purple Wave PSA 10 for 56. And probably the one that I like the most is the Blue Diamond, which is the 75th anniversary one. PSA 10 for 45 USD.
Nice.
I think that's appropriately priced. Do I think he's going to go up and be $450 at some point? No, I don't.
Probably not.
It's like that's a really quick conversation, isn't it?
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell is a little bit different. He's on card ladder. He has the pedigree of being someone that was very heavily prospected.
Yeah.
And a lot of money has gone into this young man, over time.
Yeah.
So if you look at his all-time sales data, he was up to 2,700 at one point for his silver PSA 10.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to caveat that anymore with that being the COVID time. He still sold for that much. Yeah. He's currently trading at 165. Look, at 165, population of 617, I've got no problem with that.
Yeah. I think he's sort of found his spot. I don't see, as you said, very unexciting. Like, it's just it's stable.
It's the Pat Williams comment, though. It's how much money can you make off this guy? Look, I don't think, very much. Now, in saying that, Darius Garland, this is probably the one that I'm the most interested in. He's a guard. If someone does get squeezed out, I've got a really funny feeling they're going to stay with Donovan Mitchell and push out Garland.
Okay.
And I'm going to put him into the Josh Giddey conversation of he actually just might need a fresh start. Currently trading at $58. The major detractor here is the population, 1,616.
That's insane.
Now, let's just really quickly rotate here.
Yeah.
Fast Break Purple, number to 75. Population on this is 27. Is trading for $182. So I think if you're going to go deep on this guy, that's the type of stuff you buy. PSA 10s, numbered, even if the color match doesn't work, extremely low population. And I think that's where you can potentially see if he does get traded to a new, situation.
Yeah.
And becomes his full piece. Like, imagine if he gets traded to the Warriors. I think the
true,
Darius Garland,
true.
Steph Curry backcourt would be, very, very interesting. Yeah. All right, Detroit Pistons. This is another prospecting team. I think the notation on this I've got is that you're not going to make quick money off these guys. I think all of these guys are sort of
long-term
5-year purchases because, like realistically, this team is 2 years away from competing, 3 or 4 years away from the playoffs, and who knows after that if they can actually compete for a championship. All of that, in my mind, is hinged around this young man named Cade Cunningham. I've been on the record about this guy, I would say, multiple times, and I'm actually not going to change my narrative or tune around that. I think this guy is an all-NBA talent in terms of all-NBA first team, potentially in the future. Population on this is 296. The last trading price on this was 256. All-time high sales data on this is actually $1,000. So, look, I really like it. I think the difficulty is probably for this guy is like for Aussies is the US to Australian, exchange rate. If that makes sense. Like that's to me where I sort of sit with this. I think this is a really good buy. For me, the real question is, do I buy it now or do I wait 6 months?
Yeah.
That's where I'm really heading with this. I like this guy's talent a lot.
Yep, agreed.
If you're looking further down the roster and you want to dabble a little bit in terms of, prospecting, you can look at Azure Thompson, a silver PSA 10 recently sold for $49 USD, a pink ice sold for 27.
Yep.
And then there's this one here, which is a little bit of an interesting one. This is the Hoops box hit, the presentations, which is done by the same guy that did the original Kabooms. That sold for 90 USD.
Some interesting options there.
Yeah, look, I think all of those prices, actually, I'd call those future prices because
Sure.
he had some injury issues. If I'm getting the twin right, he had the blood clot problem, which actually does put me off him a lot. So I would definitely wait and see on this kid. I wouldn't be jumping into it.
And fair.
We're 1 year further down the track, though, with Jaden Ivey. So Jaden Ivey is currently trading for a silver PSA 10 at $66.
Yeah.
He's not on Card Ladder, so this is a 130 point search that I screenshotted. What did come up, though, was his blank slate for 305. We've spoken about blank slates in terms of forever cards, just like downtown. So I think maybe this is where you start to look for someone like Jaden Ivey if you believe in his talent.
That's really true. And
there were some Ja Morant comparisons floating around for a while on this kid. That's actually not horrible.
The thing is, you've got to see some success, I think, from him. That's one, like, if Detroit are going to sit at the bottom for a decade, he's probably going to be a good player on a bad team.
Yeah, I think the issue in my mind for these guys last year was Monty Williams. He didn't fit into Monty Williams' perspective on basketball.
Yep.
And now that Williams has been fired and he's probably going to be sitting on a beach in Cancun for the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe Ivy will get rolled out a bit more this year.
Yeah, maybe.
Yep. Alrighty, Adam, I think we're going to struggle to get through all these, mate, in the next 15 minutes. But
I think we might.
Let's do one more and then we'll go to our next break, eh?
Yep.
All right. Indiana Pacers. Now,
surely that's an obvious one.
This is a fun one for me because there's a lot of players on here actually I personally like. So let's just really quickly do Halliburton. Halliburton, population on this is 404, PSA 10 silver, last traded at 305. Let's put him in the same conversation as Jalen Brunson.
Oh, Brunson.
Why not? I think he's that headlining
I think because
talent.
he's an assist guy, not a points guy, he might struggle.
Yeah, look, his shot is weird, but I think if he is going to go to the next level, he has to score a little bit more. And I wouldn't say he didn't shoot shots last year, but I agree with you. His game is to play, make, and set people up. But look, he was on Team USA. He didn't play a lot. Like, that's true, but...
Yeah, but he was on that team. That shows the caliber of player we're talking about.
Yeah. Look, he's actually had a lot of growth anyway in the last 12 months. Actually... I lied to you. In the last 12 months, he's down 20%. So where did he have his growth? He must have had it in the last 2 years.
It was definitely in the last 2 years, but he ebbed and flowed. It was more.
Yeah, actually, he's been really up and down, hasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, bottomed out in 2023.
Yeah. So yeah, he was down to 238 at one point.
But
look,
yeah.
I like this. I think in terms of putting money into someone who has the potential to step up to the next bit at that price point, I really like it. The population's fine. I would actually put that as a strong purchase.
He was a $500 card at the start of this year. Do you know what I mean? Like All-Star Weekend, but like he was really impressing midway through the season. But as the season sort of progressed on, without the Pacers succeeding.
Yeah,
I'll say he sort of dripped off, and it's the pain point of one of those small market teams, and he's not the dominant scorer that Brunson is.
Yeah, that is true to both those points, but I feel like he's eclipsed that small market issue. I don't think that's a big deal for him.
I think he's he's been in the spotlight enough. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
All right, this next one is ultimate high risk. So Dries Walker didn't play very much last year, and that's a very Rick Carlisle thing to do. He doesn't play rookies very much. So where I'm going with this is I'm expecting him to be in the rotation this year. I like his skill set. I think he's got a long way to go in terms of developing, into a fully formed NBA player, but I like what he's got there. Silver PSA 10 sold for $37.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. I think I'll leave it at that, but again, very high risk,
Yeah.
high reward type thing. We have to talk about Nembran because I put him into my top 10 teaser. That's trading at $80. I think the way I consider him is like 2 years ahead of Jerice Walker. And so
Yeah.
the way he played in the playoffs really, caught people's attention. And actually, I can kind of imagine him, the excitement, continuing on with this. Where do I see this topping out? Maybe at 120. So I don't think there's, millions of dollars to be made here. But at the same time, I think this is someone that's going to, keep trending upwards.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be really important to their development this year. I think if he keeps playing as well as he did, he has to be starting and playing, big minutes this year. I'll be really surprised if he doesn't.
Yep, agreed.
Honorable mention here is Johnny Furphy, the Aussie guy who absolutely destroyed it in Summer League.
Yep.
Someone's going to be squeezed out of the rotation. Is it going to be Jerice Walker? Is it going to be Johnny Furphy? Anyway, we'll see what happens in that space. All right, Ad, let's go to a break. US Sports Cards Australia, thank you for your long-term commitment to our podcast. You'll be with us for at least the next 6 months, guys. So if you hate this advertisement, I do apologize in advance. Go to ussportscardsaustralia.com.au. You will find sports breaks listed, singles for sale, collectible protection, hobby boxes, sports memorabilia. Ross has also got some toys on there. Pretty sure there's some water pistols for sale. But the big selling point here is ComCA, which is a consignment service for Australians. So you send your cards to Ross. Ross lists them onto the website. Then at the end of the month, you will get your money sent to you. Ross is taking care of all of the back end. He will list your cards for you. He will manage the sales part of it. Everything is all sorted out there. I'm just looking at the site at the moment. He is definitely slowly billing this out and getting more people's cards onto there. So I think that was been a bit of a challenge for him, maintaining and managing the process of getting people's cards on there. But it's definitely filling out there. So definitely check it out, guys.
Yep.
If you are a breaker and you've got boxes of cards sitting there, contact Ross. He'll take all of those cards off your hands. He'll list them onto the site, and that's something he wants to start working towards.
Yeah.
With that too. So yeah, thank you so much, US Sports Cards Australia. We are back, Adam. Are you ready for the last quarter?
The last quarter. This is going to be a fast and furious.
We have to smash this out. We've got 6 teams to go in 15 minutes. Can we do it?
We'll keep it succinct. I'll try to keep my segueing ways from escaping me.
I don't think you've really been the problem here, to be honest. All right. The Bucks have limited down to 3. Giannis. Now, I'm going to put Giannis into the same conversation as Embiid and Nikola Jokic because I'm very intrigued by this young man. 85 population on his silver PSA 10, trading at 7,400. So we're not talking about a small amount of money here, but my question is where is this card going to be in 10 years' time? Is this going to be a $10,000 card? Is it going to be a $50,000 card? Why can't this be a $100,000 card?
Can I counter that? Is it going to be a $5,000 card?
Okay.
Is he going to disappear, frazzle off into the sunset?
Let's just say he breaks his leg tomorrow,
Yeah,
and never plays again. His resume in my head is pretty rock solid. Population on this is low. Look, this is out of my price range, and I've completely missed it. But I'm putting him deliberately with Jokic and Embiid because I do think he's a little bit, maybe underappreciated within the hobby. And maybe the narrative I'm also trying to thread here is like, is this where we're going to see Jokic in a few years? Is this where we're going to see Embiid?
Yeah, maybe.
He may be half the price, or even a quarter of the price. It's still a massive uptick. So. Yeah.
Is this the because in my eyes I'm like, unless he does something big and wins again, Giannis is not a disappointment, but he's not fulfilled the expectations that we've all put on him.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. Look, so let's move to the next guy, which is Damian Lillard, and I think he's going to be the important piece of Giannis winning the next championship. Population on his silver PSA 10 is 42. It's trading for $1,000. Now, I'm actually really surprised by this.
I think this is the mover if he wins if they win a championship.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit actually not hot on this card. Like for me at $1,000, I'm like, that is almost future pricing. And actually, this card at one point traded at 10,000. So that sort of for me, even at 1,000, I'm like,
Wow.
that's
Okay.
too much for me. And for me, I'm like, look, this guy needs to win a championship or maybe even two championships for it to be $1,000 card. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so to take your point, maybe this will be a $1,400 card if they, win a chip. And maybe that's the right approach to take from it. But I'm just not that high on Lillard at
I
that
feel that.
price.
I feel
Yeah.
that. Who
All
else
right.
you
In
got?
terms of prospecting, we've got Beauchamp here. Someone has to emerge from this roster and play meaningful minutes for them.
Yeah.
I actually like Beauchamp and what he can do.
Okay.
And I do think there's potential for some movement within that roster. I don't think their roster is set. $12 Canadian, his PSA 10 silver sold for.
Sure.
That was in June of this year. Actually, I suspect probably his prices have moved up a little bit since then, but at the same time, that to me is really, juicy. It's delicious. You can hold on to that.
Yeah.
Maybe flip it out in the playoffs if they're, going really well. I like it.
Yeah.
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 Atlanta Hawks. Now, this team for me is either going to be an absolute train wreck this year or they're going to be, super fun to watch. And the one I actually put number one on this is Dyson Daniels. He got traded there as part of the trade with the Pelicans for, I'm blanking at the moment. I can see his face. He was traded from the Spurs to the Hawks and then,
DeJounte Murray.
thank you. I was going to say, I was about to say you're not helping me here, but you
No,
just said
I
it.
was thinking. I was waiting for the
Processing. Yeah, it was coming. Yeah. Look, I think he has a lot of potential. And the reason I say that is because he's got genuine NBA size and his skill set is almost like a point forward type thing where he's like a really big guard or sort of a small forward or shooting guard. And so, I think his skill set actually fits quite well with Trae Young because you do need someone to protect Trae. So
Yeah.
if he starts at the two and is facilitating and defending, the better backcourt person, I kind of like this a lot. His prices are quite low. So I found this one here, numbered to 299, PSA 10 on his rookie year. It's sold for just $15 USD. So again, I think if you're looking for someone to prospect on and has that sort of, upward potential,
Yeah.
I also think too, Aussies have a little bit of insulation here. Is if you're buying these cards in the States where, no one really cares about them, you can bring them back here and I think you'll break even pretty easily because of that sort of Aussie market play too. So I think that sort of gives you a little bit of, maybe reassurances.
Shelter. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
The big boy for me is Jalen Johnson, and I was high on this kid last year. I still feel the same way. So just really quickly, some of his prices. Silver PSA 10 sold for 105. Another one sold for 80. A Ruby Wave sold for 70 USD, which obviously is that nice sort of color match. It's really good. I've got no problem with these prices at all. I think you can expect him to have more development this year.
Yeah.
And then I think the sad story of the Hawks is Trae Young. So let's just really quickly talk about Trae Young. He had that group in overseas propping up his prices. They have absolutely abysmally
Pulled
failed.
the rug has been well and truly pulled out from these from Trae
Last
Young.
sold price was $150. The population on this is just absolutely blown out to 2,355.
That's crazy.
The funny thing is, I actually think this could go down even more. At some point, yeah, I think so because at some point, the population is just such that, and also things do very much go in sort of a trending type way. And if you're looking at the trends here, like this is going down, man. This is just like the Titanic. Like
it feels like that, but I say it's stabilized after the last year. I think once the big drop off happened,
sure.
I think it's sort of it.
Okay.
Population aside, Trae Young has the potential to be a very, very, very strong player in this league.
Yeah, but I would say, well, two things I would say. I think a lot of money went into this dude. And I think a lot of people got burned by it. I think that's also part of the narrative. Okay, fine. So if that's your opinion, I respect that. But at $150, are you buying, holding, or selling that card?
I'm not buying it.
Yeah, right. So I think that's the perfect answer, isn't it, right?
At this point in time, I said he's got the potential. Like, if he comes out and shows he is the next Steph Curry, for argument's sake, What does that change? Does that reshape the narrative? Does he spike?
I don't think so. Look, I think maybe some of his flawless stuff might, his IMAX stuff. Look, I think his vertical
Yeah.
RPAs and NT, that's the type of stuff where I think you can. But, this stuff, his silver, no, man, that's played out to death. Maybe you can look at his numbered stuff and, maybe make a play. But
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, so fine. Why would you make a play on Trey Young at this point? Like, what are you saying that his price
I would not be.
is less than his talent? Yeah, yeah.
I'm saying the prices are below the talent. However, if
Yeah.
the Hawks have a successful season and all of a sudden the Dyson Daniels move and all these other moves that they've made
Sure.
create
sure.
Golden State 2.0
Yep.
and they all of a sudden become Trey starts hitting shots from everywhere
Yep.
and becomes the new Steph Curry, then things trend the other way. But I think if he's in the iteration of Trey Young that we've seen in the last 2 years continues, where he's on the fringe of the All-Star, not in the All-Star kind of thing, I think he's $100 card and he stays steady.
That's $50 less though.
But that's what I mean. Like he bottoms, but he stables.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
He's not becoming. He's not going to be. You're not picking him up in a bargain bin.
No. Yep.
He's still a premium at this stage because he's talent.
Look, yeah, and I'm going to put that as a stay away. And actually, this is a perfect segue into the next card we're going to talk about: Charlotte Hornets, LaMelo Ball. Now, this is really interesting from my perspective to talk about in the same sentence as Trey Young because there was a heap of hype around this, and you might even go so far to say LaMelo Ball held up the hobby for 12 months. And I feel pretty comfortable saying that.
Yeah.
Now, what's crazy about LaMelo is his all-time high sold for $6,500. If you look at the graph since that time, it's literally just a slippery dip all the way down. So,
yeah,
he's down 95%. If you look at the last 12 months, he's down 46%. But what's really interesting in contrast here is the population. And I actually thought the population on this LaMelo Ball would be the same as Trey Young. It's not. It's the polar opposite. It's 400. I was about to say only 400. That's probably not the right thing to say, but it's 400. Now, if you're looking at buying someone on the dip, I don't have a problem with this at all. We sort of spoke about this with Cam Thomas in the ability for people to sort of, spike up and down. I do like this for LaMelo.
Yeah.
The only issue I've got is when you look through the Hornets roster, I don't think realistically they're built to win because they don't have a lot of juice.
They're throwing mud at a wall at the moment, let's be
fair.
fair.
They don't have a lot of juice at, multiple positions. So, the next big thing is probably Miles Bridges. And then you could sort of say, well, Brandon Miller's been pretty good for them. But then when you start to look at their other guard spot, what have you got? Seth Curry. Then you look at their pivot position, they've got Mark Williams. That's really tricky to beat the rest of the teams out in the East, let alone when we start comping the West. So Bridges, just really quickly, he is currently trading
He's quite tainted when you think about it, Bridges. But...
Yeah, he also had his own sort of like legal problems at $30. Population on that is 806. Look, I think that's totally fine, but
I think $30 is good value.
Yeah, but
he could really turn it on for a patch there.
Yeah. I'd put that in the same sort of category as Trey Young, though. It's kind of like, and also too, we've spoken about so many cards today. Like, if you sort of filter them out and rank them, I'd sort of put him like, pretty close to the bottom.
But if he has a good season, is he a $30 card or is he an $80 card?
Maybe he's a $50 card.
Yeah,
50 or 60. Yeah.
Okay.
I do find it.
So he's not as good as Derek White.
No.
Okay, that's fair enough. I like Derek White.
I mean, White has championship pedigree
and a gold medal.
Yeah. Actually, the one I'm most interested in is Mark Williams. So his silver PSA 10 traded for $33. A number to 125 traded for $60 US.
Yeah.
The issue I have with this guy is not so much that I like him, it's just his position that he plays. I think that's, extremely limiting in this case, but definitely I wanted to talk about him.
Yeah.
And I think the obvious one that we need to talk about, mate, is Brandon Miller.
Yeah, Brandon Miller's obviously...
We're sort of at the end of the cycle in terms of, him coming out of his rookie cycle. He's obviously not on card ladder, so this is all 130-point data. Yep. I'll just quickly reel these off. Silver PSA 10, 202.
Mm-hmm.
Cracked ice for 82. Red Ice for 62, Red Sparkle for 435. Now, this one here is really interesting. So, this is the white prism numbered to 175 that traded for 831 USD. So, the way I read that is that actually the hobby sentiment around him is quite strong.
Yep.
And so,
Agreed.
there's a bit of a belief, in him.
So
Probably
you reckon Miller and Ball can rejuvenate the Hornets in a couple of years?
I think there'll be a really good 1-2 tandem.
Yeah.
And I think actually Brandon Miller will be significantly better when Ball comes back. Because, I
Yeah.
think Brandon Miller has got a good game, but I actually think he's not a number one.
Okay.
And so let's just say you paired him with Halliburton, that actually might be a better pairing just because of the way that they can play. But at the same time, LaMelo's got, really good court vision. What I'm worried about with this kid is that once the excitement comes off, what are we going to see with his pricing? It's not, and I'm not talking about talent here. I'm not talking about fit. I think the talent is fine, and I think the fit is there, but it's the cycle. And so when we move into the next 12 months, and I personally think it's going to be a really bad, draft year, Brandon Miller starts to trend down. Is he someone that you then start to snap up once his prices start to come down?
Playing the game, so to speak.
Yeah. So that's where I'm watching Brandon Miller. That's where I really think, you've got some value to be had.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Agree.
All right. Miami Heat. I had 4 in there, but I think in view of time, let's just do Jimmy Butler and Jamie Jaquez, because I think Jaquez is an interesting one.
Yep, agreed. We can touch on the other two very quickly, but not...
We can do them real quick. That's fine. Jimmy Butler's worth talking about, though, because his population is just 23. So we're talking about ultra low pop here. Now, that's trading for $1,000. My concern is that he's never going to get to a championship, and $1,000 is actually future pricing. I'm stealing your term here. I'm giving you full credit.
So this is his resume complete price, is what you're...
Yeah.
Interesting.
Also, too, he's a little bit of a...
Well, we are at year 12, right? Like, he's not a... It's...
Like, all that nonsense he did with his, like, his hair and his photos and stuff.
He's over the hump. He's over the hump career-wise.
He hasn't been great with teammates. I'm sort of a bit like, whatever. Anyway. Really quickly, Bam, Silver PSA 10, population 546, trading for $57. Again, I put him into that Porzingis bucket where the talent is more than the price, but
he's also not the number one guy, so it's a tough.
How long do you wait for this guy to explode? I
don't think he can.
Like this is his hobby destiny.
He's a number 2, and that's where he's going to sit. Yeah.
Right, Jamie Jaquez, on the other hand, I'm very intrigued by this. $50 Silver PSA 10 sold for on the 26th of September, so literally just yesterday. When you comp it straight to Bam, that's actually a really sort of sobering thought, isn't it? Would you rather have a Jaquez or would you rather have the Bam? Actually, I think in terms of talent, I probably like Bam better, but maybe what the narrative here is the excitement around Jaquez is maybe more, so you can sort of...
Jaquez has got the opportunity to become the number 1 because he's young.
No,
that's why people prospect, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think sure. You're creating the narrative. That's fine. So you play that for the quick flip, but realistically in my head, I think actually Bam is probably the better player. So that to me is a little bit of a stay away at that price. Now, just really quickly, I want to talk about Tyler Hero. I just want to talk about the population on this. Actually, it's not that bad, 858, but that's trading.
But for a guy that's never going to be the number 1, that's tough.
Yeah, but this dude had a lot of popularity. So at one point, he was trading at all time at 1,400. And I think in terms of we want to talk about people getting burned through COVID, and we highlight Zion, we highlight Ja Morant. Let's not forget Tyler Hero. He definitely broke some hearts. This guy,
for sure.
All right, Orlando Magic. This is probably a personal favorite for me. I love the Magic. There's just something about this team which I'm almost like romantic with at this sort of point. So
romantic with, yeah, I know what you mean.
They're just a good young team, man, and I think they're going to be better this year. I think the KCP acquisition is like a really big deal. Like essentially, could put them forward 2 steps. Just a really quick side note: Markel Fultz is still unsigned at this point, so I really hope he goes to the Spurs or the Warriors or something like that and just signs for a
Backup
veteran
card
minimum. But
for the
I was
Lakers.
actually buying him last year in the hope that
Yeah.
he was going to spike. But yeah, honestly, rest in peace to all the Markel Fultz collectors out there.
Yeah.
Um, all right, Banchero is interesting, insanely talented. I'm going to put him as much talent as Jason Tatum. That's how much talent I think this kid has.
Ooh, okay. He's not
Uh,
LeBron though.
he can get into phases where he is just automatic in terms of his scoring. Okay. I think he's unselfish. I think he plays the right way. He is a big body and he has a multifaceted skill set. I also had the privilege to see him and I had fantastic seats that day. I was up close to him and he just was just unstoppable. And I think, yeah, at this point, I'm just like frothing over this guy, but I think he's insanely talented.
Agreed.
You know, my issue here, though, is his population. He's already up to 707, currently trading at 400. I think at that price point and the population and his current talent, all of that is fine for me.
Yeah.
The real question is this a buy, a hold, or a sell? Look, I probably think at that population, you probably should sell that out and move into something that's numbered, even if the PSA number is lower.
Yeah.
That's just my personal feeling. You know, his autographs actually do really well, and I think they've held their value, you know, really well. So that's the other play you sort of do with him. You know, you look at his patches, you look at his on-card autos, and you play that market because, yeah, I think if you want a high-end prospect, I think Banchero is a really, really interesting, and you know,
it's an interesting look. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope we can come back to this one ad in 2 years and talk about it and kind of say, look, in episode 164, we were talking about
this kid.
Yeah, and now this is where he's at. Like that's kind of how I feel about this guy.
I like him.
Yeah,
I think it's a good look.
And then I think if you want to, low end prospect on this team is Anthony Black. I think just like I was saying about with the Bucks, someone needs to emerge. The same thing here. Like the Magic have invested into young players. They just need people to step through the cracks. Anthony Black has the 3-and-D pedigree, a numbered to 100 fast break sold for $40 USD for a PSA 10. The silver sold for 50. I think if you're getting a silver for 50 and a numbered to 100 for 40, I know where I'm putting my money every single time.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a curious one for me. So look,
time and a place, really. We're in the off season, so maybe it slipped through the cracks. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. Look, I think if I can be honest with you too, actually those prices for me are really high because I think he is not even a home run to make the rotation this year, let alone be in the starting lineup and contribute significantly. So I think these prices for me are quite risky, but at the same time, if you want some risk and you want to, dabble in something, this is it.
Agreed.
Last team, mate, we're going to do it. The Wizards, let's go out on an absolute banger. Let's start with Jordan Poole.
Absolute banger.
Now, look, we've called some things right over the years, and we've called, well, I'm talking about myself here, we've called things wrong here over the years, but this one, we were so effing right, it's not funny. So when Jordan Poole went to the moon, we were like, sell, 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 sell. The highest price he sold for was nearly $900. He's currently trading at $39. So I think that is, and that's post-COVID too, man. So the people that bought into that, honestly, shame on you. Population 1,177. Look, even at $30, I'm not touching this. I think he's basically become like a carnival and sideshow act.
But it's one of those things where are you prepared to spend like $30 to go, this was $1,000 card?
Yeah. And I mean, that's the narrative behind it, isn't it? Yeah. And you do a podcast segment on it and I don't know, do you write it off as a tax deduction? I don't know, man.
Entertainment purposes only.
Yeah.
And then you burn one. I don't know.
So if you look at the Washington Wizards roster, I think the thing that's really come through to me is they're drafting young. They are drafting really, really young. They've got, multiple 19 and 20-year-old kids on this team. So Koulibaly was 19 this year. He'll go into the league 20 this year. I'm putting this as the same as Anthony Black. So actually he's trading at very comparable prices. Silver PSA 10 is 51.
Yeah.
Interesting about this, and I think I wanted to talk to you about this one, Ad. Gold to 10 traded for 2,800. Like for me, that is like ultra high risk investing.
Yeah.
And I think particularly with the team's pedigree, they've not really demonstrated any ability to put together a winning or a team of any significance.
Mm.
I'm actually also really worried about their younger players this year in that they might be somehow trying to push towards the playoffs, because if you look at their roster, the way it's constructed, they've got a really clear sort of veteran starting five that they can roll out on the floor.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
there's almost the argument to be made that Koulibaly is not going to play this year.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
Alex Sarr might have trouble getting into the rotation, and so might Bub Carrington, whereas he actually should be probably playing these guys 35 minutes a game and just kind of be saying. But then they also give up on prospects. Like the Wizards are such like this. Like they gave up on Denny, they gave up on Rui. Like it's just like absolutely.
But this is all right. So hypothetically speaking, is this where the potential, aside from Jordan Poole aside, are the Wizards an untapped gold mine? Can you pick up something cheap here that in 3 or 4 years is just going to spike and?
Yeah, but okay. So let me answer that question. I can actually answer that, but it's not cheap, right? Because Koulibaly is already trading at 51.
Yeah, true.
Whereas
okay, yeah.
you go to a better organized team. So we spoke about the Raptors today. You can get an Emmanuel Quickly for what, $2 for a silver?
Okay. Yeah.
So if you're asking me, oh, do I want to prospect on cheap, low end guys? To be honest, I would probably just stay away from the Wizards in entirety, including Alex Sarr. Like, how much is a PYT?
I think Sarr's definitely not worth touching, but the others.
Yeah, but how much is
midway through
the Wizards
the
going to be in a PYT
trash.
this year, Ad?
Yeah, right, fair. Because
I'm looking at third highest.
I'm looking at the Wizards pre-season. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, all these who's going to get it?" and overpaying.
Yeah.
Then the season starts, and everyone realizes that the Wizards are a steaming pile of manure, and they start offloading their cheapies, the prospects.
Yeah.
There might be some bargains there, because they might get delisted and picked up by someone else. They might get. Do you know what I mean? Like they might stop getting played and get moved. At that point, it might be a quick. It's definitely not a quick flip. It's a pick them up while they're down and then wait till they move somewhere successful.
Yeah.
Rui was a good one. He spiked a little bit when he went to LA.
Yeah.
And he bottomed out before then.
Yeah. Look,
you're not making millions. You're definitely not.
I think my answer to this is that even alone in the Eastern Conference, I probably think you can find more reliable prospects. And I think also too, part of this is I do think that team success has something to do with player value. And I do not trust the Washington Wizards to make a cup of tea, let alone win a playoff game. And so,
look, you got to give them credit for keeping Jordan Poole's price above $20. That's pretty impressive.
But mate, do you know actually what? Maybe the Jordan Poole graph is the perfect analogy for the Washington Wizards card value.
I hate to do this. Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe you are right. Yeah, maybe you've got a point there. Does Kuzma have a similar graph? They're as bad as each other, aren't they?
They're in the same sentence, yeah.
Yeah.
Big man Jonas Valanciunas is going to be there. They've also got Malcolm Brogdon at the moment. I actually see the scenario where they start Sadiq Bey later in the season, and they're going to squeeze all these young kids out. It's going to be nightmare material.
I find it, oh my God, why did I even look at card ladder for Kyle Kuzma?
All right, let's finish on a positive note, because that was such a downer. Why did I put the Wizards at the end? I think it's because it was in alphabetical order, but anyway.
Probably. Can I just say on the Kyle Kuzma thing, if you're looking for a cheap Kaboom...
How much is a Kaboom trading for?
Kyle Kuzma, 2018 Kaboom.
Yeah.
Raw, 250 US.
Yeah.
10 PSA 10 330.
Yep. Yeah, goodbye. Purely for the Kaboom, nothing to do with Kuzma.
But that's like PMGs that what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's the right call, mate. Yeah.
There's your value if you're a Wizards collector.
There's your Washington Wizards purchase, yeah.
Yeah.
Stay away from
Kyle Kuzma Kabooms.
Yeah.
That could be the cover for this week's episode.
Final thought, Ad, I'll let you finish the show
off. Final thought, there's a lot of value. It's really up to the collector. And my thought is it's up to to you guys what you want, but that I think we've demonstrated there's stacks out there.
Yeah.
And however you want to collect it is.
Yeah. We've illustrated price points today. We've illustrated a whole bunch of different teams. It's it's cool. Yeah.
Kaboom.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Adam, thank you for a very enjoyable morning. I've had a fantastic time. It's now afternoon, but let's not let the facts get in the way of the truth.
Let's not dwell on that. Yeah. Let's everybody enjoy if you're in Melbourne, enjoy the long weekend. If you're not in Melbourne, just enjoy your weekend.
Actually, one last thing. Did we mention this last show? We got to 1,000 followers on Instagram. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks to everybody
Instagram
on
love.
Instagram. Yeah. And those that are watching us, there's a lot more comments coming through on YouTube and stuff like
Definitely.
that. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. If you haven't already, please subscribe. You don't have to like all our videos. We would like it if you would like them, but the subscription is what we want. We want to know you guys are listening on YouTube.
Yep.